Hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'm going to be dropping another Marvel Legends Secret Wars figure as I can look at all of the figures in this wave across this week. So today it is Wolverine. Now if we take a look at the packaging, of course we can see it has the standard Secret Wars packaging as we saw with the Iron Man. There's no real differences here except the figure inside that packaging, which looks great, and I have to say that when you put these on your wall they're really colourful and they definitely catch the eye. Now, if we flip it and look at the reverse of the packaging, well, we can see some newly commissioned artwork here. We can see Wolverine in his tan costume, one of my personal favourites, and we have a little bit of bio here on the left-hand side. That's before we have all the other figures in this wave underneath, and of course this is in keeping with the retro style that we saw from the original series. And then we have some instructions about how to turn over the holographic image on the inside of the shield. So, looking at the figure itself, we can see that of course Hasbro have recycled a lot of previous released Wolverine parts. However, there are some new subtleties and differences with this particular version. For a start, we have a brand new head sculpt. The fins on the ears, for example, are a very different shape to what we've had previously. They're slightly taller and a bit narrower than what we've seen previously. Likewise, of course, he has a smirk on his face. This is the first time we've ever had Wolverine smiling or smirking as far as I'm aware. I don't think we've ever seen this before, so it's probably overdue. And I have to be honest, when I first saw this, I didn't like it. I was like, this doesn't feel right for the character. This just, I'm not keen on this. But it has really grown on me in recent days, and I have to say, actually, I do quite like it now. The other key difference you'll notice with this version of the character and in this particular costume is the fact that the paint job is very different to what we've seen previously. For example, that central V shape on the chest there obviously has a much greater yellow to brown ratio to any release we've seen previously, making that central strip there very narrow down the front of his torso, which is kind of cool because it reflects some of the different art styles we'd see in comic books at the time. Not all artists would approach it exactly the same, and this is definitely one I've seen in some comics of the 80s. Other times it's much wider. So cool to have that subtle difference here. The other key thing, of course, is the choice of colour that they've gone for, because this is a much lighter brown than we've typically seen on the tan version of this costume in other releases. So really nice to see. This actually looks quite different, quite a lot different to previous versions of this same costume. We also see some nice paint apps on the arms. The hairs on the arms are actually sculpted in and then painted over, so it has a nice rough texture, and it's really nice to see this level of detail. We've seen it before, of course, but it's nice to have it. And if we look at the boots, again, there's nothing really original here as far as I can tell. We've seen this before, but they are nicely painted, and of course he stands nice and easily. Looking at the articulation, he does have a ball joint at the top of the neck there, so his head can spin all the way around, and it can just about wobble left and right. It can look up and down though, thanks to that hinge that he has in the neck there, and there's a good range of motion here, which is brilliant. He does have the fabulous butterfly wing joint, which I think you really need on a Wolverine figure, so I love this. And of course he has the ball joint in the shoulder there as well, the complementary bicep swivel, the double joint in the elbow, and of course he has the pin swivel in the wrist there as well, so the hand can rotate all the way around and hinge forwards and backwards. He's got a straight swivel at the waist, so he can spin from side to side, and then he has the ab crunch in the sort of chest area there as well, so he can bend forwards and he can bend backwards a pretty good distance, definitely more forwards than back, but still pretty healthy. There's ball joints in the hips, so the legs will kick out to the side. There's the thigh swivel at the top there, the legs will kick forwards, they'll go back a little bit. There's a double joint at the knee, so that lower leg can kick all the way back there, and then we have the ankle pivot, so of course that foot will hinge forwards and backwards and it will rock from side to side. In terms of accessories, Wolverine's a little bit lighter than what we saw with Iron Man, but he does come with an additional pair of hands, this time with the claws out, and he also has an alternate head, again a brand new sculpt I believe, and of course he has his holographic shield. Now funnily enough, having collected quite a lot of Wolverines across the years, Hasbro have a number of different options when it comes to the claws that they use, and not all of them are equal. I happen to really like this set though, because each one is individual and it doesn't tend to warp or get too damaged in packaging, so they're nice and distinct and they look pretty cool, I have to say. So I'm actually a big fan of this approach. They tend to be a bit more rounded and less pointed at the tips. But I must admit, I'm not a huge fan of this alternate Logan or unmasked head sculpt at all. This looks a little bit too squat to me, a little bit too narrow, a little bit squashed. And yeah, I don't like the expression on the face either. This doesn't work for me, and unlike the smirking head, I've not warmed to this one at all. Now, part of that might be because I haven't actually been able to put it on the shoulders of the figure itself, and the reason for that is there's a quality control issue, because I did try and swap the head out, but if you can just about see here a white mark, well, that is where the plastic is starting to tear, and I was very aware that if I continued on my approach, this ball joint was going to snap off, and I didn't want to take that chance. Very disappointing to see, and I have to say, probably the first time I've ever encountered that on any Marvel Legends figure, but very disappointing. And sadly, not unique to this figure in this wave, because I mentioned in the Iron Man video about the roller skates, and then there's another one coming up when we look at Titania a little bit later. Thankfully, there's no issues with the shield, and the hologram works just fine here, alternating between Logan and the unpopped claws, and of course the masked Wolverine with the claws out. Okay then, so I'm going to put aside the issue with the ball joint, and I'm going to give this figure 4 stars. I'm pretty sure that quality control issue is probably a one-off, and it's probably just occurred to me. I'm guessing it's not standard for any other collectors out there, so probably not one to worry about. So I'm going to ignore it in this case, and I think otherwise the figure is deserving of its 4 stars. I think it's a really good base mold of a figure. I think the articulation's fantastic. I like there's enough differences here to make this well worth the double dip. The colouring on the figure, the alternate heads that we get, it makes it very distinct and very different to anything we've had previously. I'm also really pleased that Hasbro have taken a chance and done something different here by showing the lighter side of the character, by giving it that smirk on that head sculpt. I wasn't keen initially, but I've really warmed to it, and I'm really pleased that I actually have a Wolverine that isn't either snarling or grimacing. For once, he actually looks quite happy, and that's pretty cool. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving the video a like. That kind of thing really does help the channel out, and it allows me to keep making more content. And if you're interested in seeing more content, remember to hit subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos coming soon.